Thanks for stopping by.
Always a pleasure.
It was only a few short years ago that you and Keegan were shooting like water guns into my crotch. The transformation is complete, my friend.
Yes.
Which is very
Isn't that
apropos
wild?
given the duality at the heart of this film.
Yes, you don't know whether or not I'm myself or if my tethered doppelganger has come up and killed the real Jordan. And now I've decided to make horror
I
movies.
didn't even think of it that way.
Yeah.
But is it more satisfying in a way? You would obviously achieve such success in the comedic space, as much acclaim as you can get. Is there something almost more satisfying to get this kind of acclaim on Get Out and Us?
Yes. I've been in comedy for, many years. I was in comedy and I got my fair share of laughs and I failed at getting my fair share of laughs. And laughter's great. It feels awesome. But when you make an audience like, oh, yeah. When you get that shudder, it is a different level of like power. It's just so cool, and I think part of it is because it's helping me conquer my own fears.
Right.
This whole thing.
Well, it's funny because I would imagine one of kind of those stock questions people ask you for these last two films is sort of like recurring nightmares, right? And I'm guessing almost one of the recurring nightmares, if I were you, would be, how do I succeed Get Out? How do I not disappoint audiences? Getting the Oscar, becoming a pop culture phenomenon. Were you kind of racked with that kind of burden going into this one? Because it's a tough act to follow.
Yes, I was very racked with that burden. Last year at the Oscars, I went to, I'm gonna tell a cool story about myself, if that's okay.
There are only cool stories about you.
I went to the Gold Party afterward, which is Jay-Z's party. So I met Jay-Z and I'm like, he's giving me what you've done, like, you don't even understand. Like, and I was like, did you see it more than once? He was like, what? What? So it was the coolest night. And at some point I was like, how do you follow this up? Like, it worked perfectly. I'm just afraid I'm not gonna be able to replicate or beat it. And he goes, it doesn't matter. You already did that. And I was like,
it's all gravy now.
When Jay-Z tells you it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
You're good, I'm good, and I could just return to this idea of like make my favorite film that that didn't exist.
We've talked before about both grew up here in New York City, yet these first two kind of installments in this kind of new career, they're not about urban environments. Do you find suburban settings, non-urban settings more chilling, more disturbing than horror set in an urban environment?
Horror movies that are like take place in like dark, dusty, muddy houses or basements, it's kind of like, right. All right, yeah. So,
what do you expect?
But the horror movies that take place in idyllic environments,
right?
The Stepford Wives, the Jawses, even The Shining. The horror you can get from daylight and places that are supposed to be vacation. I think that they're eerier, scarier. There's a more satirical horror to them, but also they kind of give the audience their cake and they get to eat it too.
Right.
They get to kind of go on an adventure or a vacation as opposed to be like claustrophobic and...
Totally.
So that's my style.
You've talked a little bit about how this film is dealing with kind of this pervasive fear of the other that is in the zeitgeist right now in particular. I'm curious, do you think this film would have emerged in your brain had the election of 2016 not happened? How much of it is born out of our lives and times right now?
Hard to say. The first thing I do when I'm trying to come up with a movie is I listen to myself. So listen to my emotion, what makes me scared. This idea of the doppelganger came up because I've been afraid of the idea of seeing myself since I was younger.
So what do you mean by that, seeing yourself?
Well, I would literally picture myself across the subway platform as a kid, growing up in New York City. And it was a fun, sort of titillating fear, but it was just like, it was primal. Right. And I hadn't intellectualized it or hadn't really thought about it, but it's sort of always been present. And the idea of like yourself giving you a knowing smile, sort of indicating I'm the version that was ready for this. There's something chilling about that. So I wanted to make a doppelganger story, and the idea of a family of doppelgangers. When I got that idea, when I got that spark, I knew it would be kind of a new direction in doppelganger lore, right? And then only in analyzing this and why this was coming up do I sort of get at this idea of, because collectively we have a dark side. I mean, to answer your question, I didn't set out to make a movie about a post-Trump America,
right?
But you know, it's not an accident that these were my fears were surrounding this sense of us
right.
as a collective, our demons. You know, certainly I, at a certain point, decided to use, you know, United States imagery from, you know, whether it's the genocide of the Native American
right.
people or our xenophobia and privilege. But however you define us, you know, in order for you to have us, there's got to be a them.
Right.
And I think that's kind of in its core, what this movie is about is we will value our own, however we see it, more than we'll value the other.
How important is it for you that, you know, at the center of this film is middle class, upper middle class African American family? We talk a lot about representation now. You know, growing up, did you see yourself depicted in horror movies generally, and how important is it for you nowadays to kind of change that?
No, I didn't. The closest would have been People Under the Stairs, which was actually pretty darn close. Little black kid in a house of, you know, a house where there's like a psychotic, weird, kinky white family. Great film.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no. I mean, there was no black families in the center of a horror film. There's elements of this film that follow in the Amblin tradition of family working through their dynamic.
Right. The poltergeist kind of a thing.
Poltergeist, Jaws,
totally,
Close Encounters. And you know, when I realized, like, yeah, we haven't gotten a black family in that scenario, I realized that there was a whole different reason this movie was important, even though the movie itself, plot-wise, is not about race.
Sure. I think this is Lupita's first leading role.
Yeah.
In a film, which is just bananas to even think about.
Yeah, if not our most talented star that we have, and I think if the opportunities have come by her, you know, they probably haven't been good enough.
Right.
It just highlights this idea that, you know, we're still very much in you know, living with the systemic sort of failure when it comes to representation. And I was just so lucky to get her and to be able to help her show the world.
A couple new sides to her in this one.
Yeah, and why she's queen.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I remember we had a chat once, and we talked about your horror influences growing up, but also about sci-fi, and you talked about your love of aliens growing up, and how like you were obsessed. You had the face hugger.
Yeah. Over my bed, I had the face hugger just dangled over my bed.
That's the first indication that things are going to go.
Something's wrong.
Things are going to go weird at some point in your life.
The call's coming from inside the house.
Exactly. So clearly, I mean, there's the shadow of Ripley, I would think, a little bit here.
Oh, hell yeah.
That classic, iconic character.
Yeah.
Is that something you talked about with Lupita a little bit?
Yes. I've been telling her, like, look, this is going to be like a thing. Like, you going down to save your son with a spoiler alert. On your journey with your, you know, fire poker weapon. It's like iconic, like let's go, mom power stuff that, you know, is so Ripley. She hadn't seen it, and I was on a plane with her recently where Alien was an option, the first one.
Okay.
And so we watched that, and, you know, she's not like the best equipped for horror movies.
Got it.
But I think that's kind of why she was like...
Perfect.
It's like she's ready to... You know, she's the darkness is like suppressed, like it is most of us. So I think she got some kind of therapeutic.
Glad she got something out of it too. Yeah, okay.
I think so.
You know, one curious thing. There's so much like iconography you're playing with throughout the film. One is like a prominent use of a Thriller T-shirt, Michael Jackson Thriller, and I'm just curious, like if you were making the film today, would you put that front and center? Still, there's obviously the dialogue around Michael Jackson is changing. It feels like week by week now, and a lot of people are reevaluating where he stands in
If it was
culture.
today, I probably would have thrown a couple more Michael Jackson
Really?
t-shirts in. I mean, no, it's a great. He is a fascinating being, and he, this moment when it starts in the '80s, there is, this examination of '80s duality, whether it's Hands Across America, or Michael Jackson, Thriller. Actually, this is Hands Across America. The thing that inspired me to bring that in was I believe an MTV commercial.
Oh, really?
For Hands Across America.
Which, for those that don't remember, was
There's people tethering themselves together, hand in hand, to
support
cure hunger.
Yeah, sure. It's only natural.
Yes, and it's sort of connected to me in this Michael Jackson duality that there's this great philanthropy with this underbelly of darkness. That is, kind of confusing in the type of nostalgia it gives me.
Right. Coming off of Get Out, it's safe to say the opportunities that were at your feet were endless. Like, and I think it's so cool that you went this way. And if anything, this is more out there than Get Out. And I mean that as a compliment.
Thank you. No, I like it.
And I like that you sort of that's how you tackled the expectations. But I'm curious, was it tough to say no to franchises? I'm sure you've had, if I were a betting man, I would bet you $1 million that Marvel offered you several different films. Would you take that bet with me?
You know what? I did get a lot of amazing opportunities. They were, I think in retrospect, they sort of amounted to something I was entertaining because the dream any one of these things is a dream come true.
Sure.
But in the back of my head, I knew it wasn't meant to be. There are a few of us out there, trying, it's scary work and it's bold work to write original movies. And, whenever one of these things came up, or a rumor circulated, my fan base would collectively tell me no.
Right.
And so I'm like,
make your own thing.
I love that. And that to me means, look, if I write something new and write it from the heart and try and make my favorite movie that doesn't exist yet, if it fails,
right,
it fails. But I did what I'm here to do.
You've been open before after Get Out came out that you toyed with ideas for a continuation of that story. Is there a treatment? Is there an actual document with ideas for a Get Out sequel?
No, all of this stuff is in my head. I build a little bit of a sandbox up there of images and ideas, and sometimes they connect and sometimes they don't. 80% of it will never see the light of day.
Right.
But it's all part of staying as creative as possible.
Right.
Following the fun of what I would want to see.
If there's a downside to all the success, I would guess that is the final nail in the coffin of your acting career, thanks to your success as a filmmaker now. Are you entertaining ideas to act again, or are you just so down this path that it's not even interesting to you?
Getting to host the Twilight Zone
right.
is will satisfy my on-camera desires, which really aren't much. The anxiety of being on screen is less fun than the anxiety of being
Got it.
Of creating from behind the camera.
So more likely at this point for you to cast yourself or Keegan in one of your future films?
More likely for me to cast Keegan by a long shot.
Yeah. Also excited, you're co-writing and producing the Candyman continuation, sequel, reboot, whatever we want to call it. What should we call it?
We're calling it a spiritual sequel.
Okay.
Whatever that means. But
I don't know what that means.
I don't either. But it's we sort of reserve the right to connect to the mythology in our own specific way.
Right. And as if the last couple of years couldn't get great enough for you, you also are maybe most responsible for getting Spike Lee his Oscar. It wouldn't have happened without you. That's got to be a crazy source of pride to see someone you grew up with.
I was very fortunate enough to be in the right position where, QC Entertainment brought me this script, and I was able to kind of hop on board, add some momentum to it, and get Spike on board. And of course, we did it with Focus and Blumhouse. It didn't hit me until Spike got his award, his Oscar, how historic
Yeah.
a thing this was to have been a part of.
Yeah.
And you know, when that happened, I was just like, well, you know, a faucet. I just went. I was just watching him deliver his speech, and you know, that was just like 30 years in the making. Was just so.
That's amazing.
It was remarkable.
It's been a good couple years for you, man. Congratulations on Us. Now, just for the record, should the Star Wars and Marvel folks not call you? Like, are you totally cool on not hearing from them? Or should they keep your number, just in case?
You know what? I'm good.
All right, I like that.
I'm good.
Okay, cool.
I got a lot of stuff to do.
Okay, excellent.